Hey, what's up, Hoosier fans? Great to be back here with you. Another episode of Under the Hood with Indiana football presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers. Get out there, visit your local Central Indiana Ford dealers today. Rhett Lewis back here with you, color analyst on the IU Radio Network. Now getting a chance to chat with a two-time Hoosier now. We welcome Pat Kuntz back to the program here. Going to be with the big fellas up front on the defensive line. Coach, great to have you back in Bloomington. What's it been like here on this second tour of duty?
Oh, it's been awesome. As a GA here, it was a different scenario, different staff, but, it's great to be back home, especially with two young kids. I met my wife here when I was a graduate assistant. So being from this state, it's a lot of pride in Hoosier land. And, it's just what an honor to be back here.
And congratulations on welcoming baby Harlow to the family, and excited to have him a part of the 2043 recruiting class here in a little while.
Yes, I got Harlow the hammer and then Axel the axe. So yeah, I think that might be it, but we'll see. Mom might get the baby blues here in about a year. We'll see.
There you go. Well, it's awesome that Bloomington brought your family together, and it's kind of cool. And I'm just kind of curious, how you've evolved from your time, getting into the coaching profession as a GA and now to what you're going to be doing here for us as a defensive tackles coach, and what that time in between Bloomington has really meant in your evolution as a coach.
Well, it was obviously just a huge opportunity to learn under, Tom Allen, Kevin Wilson, especially Mark Hagan, great defensive line coach. And, they really, coming from a high school coaching perspective, which I did for 6 years prior to being a GA, right. I was probably the oldest GA in college football when I took this job. They really just refined and sharpened. And then as I got an opportunity to coach at Virginia Military Institute, really that dug deep into the ability to teach and maximize the most out of what some people might say is lesser talent, but the work ethic that those kids have at VMI and, the kind of heart and just the determination and the intelligence, it was really an honor to coach there. And we were able to accomplish a lot of things that people never thought could be done at VMI, winning a SoCon championship, even though people say it's the COVID season. I don't care. It's still football season. We had to play football. And then, I had an opportunity to be in Southern Illinois for like 4 weeks. And then Coach Haynes called me and offered me a job, and Coach Sig offered me a job at James Madison University, and I was jumping for joy. That really took it to the next level. So as far as refining BMI and being a GA really refined things, but working for Coach Signetti and Coach Haynes has made me such a better coach, and really from a teaching perspective. Like that's one thing I learned and take a lot of pride in based off Coach Haynes is, it's one thing to be able to coach football, it's another thing to be able to teach football. And the smarter you can get your players, the more production you're going to have. And then, having better players at JMU always helps. That's, any coach who's worth his salt is going to tell you great players make great coaches. And I was, in the situation to benefit from all that, being surrounded by great leaders to help me and even grow more as a football coach. So,
and when you talk about teaching the game and coaching the game, which it sounds like you've got such a great passion for, and have been, very fortunate to be around, guys who have that shared passion, and Coach Haynes and Coach Signetti and others that have come, with you guys from James Madison, especially on the defensive side of the ball here. But how does that reflect with your group that you're in charge of here in Bloomington this go around with those defensive tackles? Like what do you talk to them about in terms of teaching the game?
Well, I think the biggest thing is like when you have high football IQ and you understand the scheme inside of out, not just your job description and fully completing that job description, but others around you. And then you tie in like getting the call fast. And then that's when you see that people are ready to be in their stance. They're ready to see. And then now they have time to see other things. Where's the running back located? Where's the tight end located? What's the stance of this offensive lineman? What's his stagger? Where more and more offensive linemen, as they're taught and everything, the tempo is going fast, they'll show you with their eyes, especially where that stripe of the helmet. I love that because we can see a lot of things pre-snap. And then ultimately, when you know what other people are doing around you, especially being a defensive lineman, now I know where I can take aggressive chances, where I can take risks, where I can be aggressive vertically, knowing where my help is and where I have to leverage the football at the end of the day. Because, our scheme and what people are going to see at IU, especially up front, it's very productive. It allows our guys up front to never block themselves, make fast, violent, vertical decisions with an ultimate job description of inside shoulder tackle the ball carrier. And people are like, oh, well, you might see some things where people are slipping gaps, getting vertical, but you're also going to see great technique. That's where I'm going to come in and be able to help build what has already been built here and, add on to those stories and floors, so to speak.
Well, let's go play today. You want to do that? I mean,
I'm down, man. I'm always ready.
Up right now. You know what I mean? Like
I'm always ready. Do you know that?
I bet you are. I bet you are. I do think that's one of the interesting pieces of the focus that you have with these defensive tackles is that coaching aspect, what they're going to be asked to do in their roles, and then the other piece of it to me that's intriguing is how that coexists when you split the coaching responsibilities along the defensive line, right? And you guys try to continue to have that same vision. And congruency with the guys that are going to get after the passer on the edge and provide, that run force out on the edge. So how would you describe that group effort with those guys?
Well, it's seamless, honestly, because Coach Buda Williams, as I've gotten a chance to know him more and more, what a great human being and even a greater football coach. And I have more experience just with this scheme, but we've been going more and more together, and we understand what these job descriptions are. And from my perspective, like having to coach all four, now I just coach two. That's seconds that turn into minutes, that turn into hours, that turn into days of detailed focus where it just even think about when you're watching practice tape. It's like now I can just watch two and next clip. I used to have to watch four. And then sometimes if we have a guy drop and it's like, let me get back to this view because he was on his drop. Let's see how that did. So there's just, over and over exponentially, there's going to be time saved and refined to be very, very detailed with our guys' interior.
Man, that's awesome. And then just looking at the personnel of those guys that we're talking about there on the interior, how big was it for you in the limited time that you've had a chance to get to know Philip Bleedy, but to get a player like that, who was viewed as such an impact guy this last year in Bloomington, to get him back on this roster for next year?
Oh, it's huge. It's huge. I mean, he is a physical force. He's a physical presence. And what's crazy is that he's only, in my opinion, just tapping the surface. I mean, really? He's got a lot still on his plate to accomplish. He's highly motivated. He's very mature for a college student athlete. He has a wife and two kids. Our kids are about the same age, which is pretty crazy. His empty nest is going to be a lot quicker than mine. So I think he might be onto something there, but that's true. Just, the way he handles himself and naturally is a leader by his actions. And then you start to add in the fact that he's a physical specimen. Like whenever I shake his hand or whenever I'm dabbing him up,
big old paw, isn't it?
I have to bring my A game. Like I got to unleash my dad's strength on every handshake. So really impressed with him physically. And, I know you're going to mention other guys, but
oh, for sure.
I've been very pleased with him. And, part of him is just he's had two different defensive line coaches, but now three different schemes. So just working through, teaching it day by day, and maybe it takes a little bit longer. We have to rep like install one and install two longer than other places, but the more and more we're going to keep repping it. I'm a big rep guy. He's going to get more and more accustomed to what we're trying to do here.
That's awesome. And by the way, I did fall victim to that grip in fall camp last year. Should have been more prepared based on just how physically imposing Philip could be, but that definitely catches you for sure. So excited to have him on our side.
Correct.
And then as you assess the other group of the other pieces of the defensive tackle room that were already here, with some of those guys in mind, how did that process? Where is that process in you kind of understanding what they're all about?
Well, just as in college football these days, you're always trying to acquire and build the best group you possibly can. So that process never ends. But as far as who we have right now, I'm very confident. I mean, when you think about a guy like Marcus Burris, physically impressive, mentally impressive, and just has all the tools and the traits and the intangibles to be successful. And I think this scheme and the way we're going to coach him is going to allow him to really benefit off of what he's been given naturally able to do. And then, as we keep building pieces around and developing depth, like that's what I'm really excited to get to here in spring ball is let these guys almost start with a fresh slate, start to build from the ground up with some of these guys, even though they've already had a lot of experience in college football. It's just different what we're going to be doing and ask them to do,
Yeah. And I think in the work that I do at NFL Network, I see a lot of different body types of defensive tackles or of interior defensive linemen, as we sometimes like to call them, right? You've got your Aaron Donald, your Kobe Turner types for the LA Rams, kind of those compact 285, 290 pound guys, which, a guy like Marcus Burris is right there, 6'4", 290 pounds. Yeah. Or you got some of the bigger guys like a Robbie Harrison that he gets up there in the 320, 330 range, Is there a model that you're looking for as you try to build this defensive tackle room in terms of frame, and how much of that is of import to you guys?
Well, Merlin Olsen, Hall of Fame defensive lineman back in the day, said this: a great defensive lineman is part buffalo, part ballet dancer. Yes. So some, as you get them, you're going to see a little bit more Buffalo. You're going to see a little bit more ballet dancer. That's just a general way to think about it. But ultimately, they have to have the size and skill set. Now, size can be subjective. Some people play bigger than themselves. People thought I was a smaller defensive tackle, even though obviously I look like a small defensive tackle now. But everyone has their strengths. And I've coached way different body types with this scheme from, more of the fire hydrants versus more of the long rangier guys. And, we have our standards, we have our job descriptions we have to complete, and there's never just one exact way to get that done. So I think our scheme allows people, even though built different, play different, to find their niche and how to accomplish their task and their technique and ultimately completing their job description. I keep saying that, but that's ultimately what they have to do. And some people do that in a little different manner than others, but at the end of the day, if they're getting it done, they're getting it done. So are we going to have a certain line that's always what people look like? No. But ultimately, we need people who have the capability. And if they're a little bit smaller, they have to have extraordinary traits. Like that's where you talk about an Aaron Donald. You know what I mean? Like everybody claims like any 6'1" guy now is like, oh, Aaron Donald 6'1". Well, Aaron Donald's a very, very talented man and has certain traits that a lot of people in the world don't have. But that doesn't mean that I'm just going to say like, you're too short to ever be here. There's different characteristics. There's length of arms. There's twitch. There's movement. There's power. There's like, look at like a Robbie Harrison. Like, I mean, he's got all the power and base you could think of. And now for him, it's like, all right, we need to change you from a little bit more of being Buffalo all the time. Let's see how much ballet dancer you can get.
Sure.
And with Burris, I think he's got a lot of finesse to him, but now it's about being able to be the hammer and make sure that we're going vertical and they're going backwards. Bleedy's got a little bit of both. It's like, you got to be able to be as powerful as you are and still slip and make sure you're not blocking yourself and getting vertical and knowing which shots to take. So I'm really impressed with the group we have, always looking to improve it. But I think right now you think about Burris, Bleedy, and then you got James Carpenter, who I've had a lot of experience with coaching. He's going to surprise a lot of people and just the production and how tough he is, as well as like what people don't understand about him is the movement skills are very impressive. Very impressive. And just what I call being slippery. Slippery is being able to like slip blocks, get off blocks, use hands well, and still be physical and powerful and be able to take on combination blocks as well. And then you throw in a Robbie Harrison who also can provide that next, because how the Big Ten is. I mean, this is basically compared to this, like every D lineman in a game is going to be hitting the back with a 2x4 about 4 times.
That's right.
And that's going to happen 12, 13, hopefully 14, 15 weeks in a season. So you have to have a number of people to do this. You can't just rely on 2 to 3 guys. I mean, my job is to continue to build guys like Robbie, continue to build obviously the front crew as well, the guys that are starters, because nobody's just arrived, in my opinion. All right. I haven't arrived as a coach. So why should I think that a player's arrived? But now then you start to get into like Jamari Monette. That's a guy who has potential. And then the freshman who's here early, who's already gaining weight, Mario Landino. Like, there's going to be pieces there. And I'm really excited about building that entire unit because we're only as good as each other. And I want guys that are selfless, not selfish. That's hard to say because I'm also a guy that wants D-line who wants stats. Because the guys who want stats, those are the guys that defeat blocks. Those are the guys that get off blocks. Those are the guys that show up in the backfield. Because if we're making plays in the backfield, it helps the whole team. So
exactly right. Yeah. Stat sheet stuffers that ultimately, contribute to the biggest stat of the day, which is the dub on Saturdays, and that all goes hand in hand. And I love your points about the frame, right, of some of these guys, because if you got a guy that needs a little extra bulk, well, that's what we got Coach Owings for, right, over there in the weight room, right, to put a little bit of that on. He was so impressive in a recent episode that we got a chance to chat with him. So excited for how this whole staff really is coming together and trying to bring the best out of these young men. I did want to follow up with you on James Carpenter. Intriguing player, obviously very familiar, with you and with the system, having coming over from James Madison. How does he help you implement what, you're talking about on the field, right, with those guys?
Well, I mean, first off, it is a way of how he handles himself and how he works. Like, that's number one. Like, he understands the culture and the championship standard because he just came from it. And then from a teaching perspective, it's, it's kind of strange, but like a lot of my clips that I'm teaching from JMU and this is what we run and this is how it looks like, there's a lot of 99 clips on there. So hopefully the other D linemen aren't just like, oh, well, sorry, he did a good job
for it.
There's a reason for it. So there's that aspect. And then just like his development, like he wants to continue to get better. He wants his shot just like everybody else. And his game still needs to improve because now it's a different level. He's played against P5 opponents before, obviously, but now it's week in, week out. And he's going to still have to mold his game and keep developing as a young player or a younger guy as well. I mean, compared to a person who's played in this league for 3 to 4 years.
Yeah. Exactly right. And lastly, Coach, I've really just enjoyed getting to spend some time with you. But, for those of us, and those out there still trying to get to know you and understand you, what brought you to coaching and why has this been such a great fit for you? What do you enjoy most about it?
Well, after my career at Notre Dame, I had 6 months with the Indianapolis Colts. I was practicing next to Dwight Freeney and Robert Mathis. I knew right away it was going to be a tough challenge. Like if they were the first 2 guys in a drill, I made sure I was like the 4th or 5th because
that's right.
I was going to look a lot different than they did. So I ended up getting cut. I had a huge chunk of my soul taken out because it's always hard when you end playing football or your career's ended, but it's harder when you don't make that decision, somebody else did. So as I was trying to fill that void, naturally I was brought back into football and coaching. And so ultimately, my why as a football coach is to leave this game better than the way I found it and to coach guys better than I was ever coached. Because I always thought about, well, wow, what if I was coaching myself right now? How would I have reacted to that? So there's that aspect of why I got into coaching. And ultimately it's give these kids a better opportunity than what I had and then provide for my wife, for my family, and give them the best life possible on top of that. But ultimately, I want to see how they mold, not only when they're in college. I want to be 60 and they're 35, 40 and calling me up and still bothering me. Like, I love that stuff. And just the more I care for them, the more they're going to play for me and play for each other. So at the end of the day, that's still the main thing is I want to develop great football players, but great young men as well.
Oh, Pat, we are fortunate to have you on our side, man. And can't wait to get to hang out in person a little bit in Bloomington. And we're excited to have you back in Beatstown and look forward to seeing you out there at spring practice, man. Thanks so much for giving us some time today.
No problem. I can't wait. I'm so pumped to be here and we're going to do great things. And I just can't wait to get on this field and get working with these guys.
Let's get it done. There, another episode of Under the Hood with IU Football presented by your Central Indiana Ford dealers in the books. Thanks to Coach Pat Kuntz for giving us the time. I'm Rhett Lewis. We'll see you back here for another episode of Under the Hood with IU Football next week.